Happy day, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I'm so glad to be back in the studio with a good friend of mine I'm going to introduce in just a minute. But this is our show, Mortgage Talk and More. I'm your host, Mark Hairston, and every week we attempt to bring something of value to you around your real estate needs, maybe investment properties, how to leverage real estate, how to be creative in your financing. And I'm excited today to introduce a buddy of mine named Alan Shesker, who has Shesker Law Firm that I've personally closed several transactions with, and he's going to bring a little bit different flavor to the conversation around how to buy properties, whether you're an investor or maybe you're buying a homestead for yourself in a creative way that, to be honest with you, cuts out somebody like myself possibly, because I do traditional financing, and he's going to talk about outside the box world of how to buy residential property primarily. So welcome to the show, Alan, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for letting me be on.
You bet.
Kind of fun. Like you said, I'm an attorney, been an attorney for 33 years, I think, but got into the title work. I was a construction.
33 years. You look 33 years old.
There you go. That's exactly it. I don't feel 33. So was a construction litigation attorney and kind of gravitated towards title work and enjoyed it. And so then in 2007 went out on my own with the title effort, and it was fun all the way up until end of 2007 when the recession.
So it wasn't.
Yeah. It became less fun when there was zero transactions.
I was around. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you were. And so it wasn't fun. You can tell the people in an audience, the people who went through 07, 08, 09, and who didn't.
We still have our stripes,
They have a look. And so that's what drove me to the topic we're going to talk about today, was the 07, 08, 09 recession, where we had to get creative because there weren't mortgages.
No, it was very hard to get financing.
Yeah,
back in those days.
Yeah, at first it was impossible.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
My first CE class, I remember in 08, I got certified by the Real Estate Commission to teach CE classes. In my first one, I titled FHA is the Way, because there was nothing else.
Yeah.
It seemed like that was the only loan out there that people could even get. So you came to the market with a different look at things, and tell us about how that's grown over the years.
Yeah. So we started doing this seller finance, creative seller finance transaction, because it's all that was occurring at first, and then mostly, extremely popular during that era, because you didn't have to get with the mortgage company, didn't have to qualify with the mortgage company, and so it was available to the people.
Right.
And so I got into the area. I started voraciously learning everything I could learn about these mortgage wrap transactions, and became an expert back then. And then when everything came back and conventional mortgage were available to us, I just stayed in the area. I stayed in the space because I didn't want to get hurt again. So I wanted to be ready.
That's right. And we're sort of back in that place now where it's not 08, 09, but the market has shifted because of interest rates being higher. There's a lot of opportunities in what you offer the consumer. That's why I wanted to bring you on, because you do things differently than me. We're going to use terms like wrap and assumption and sub two and things like that people may not be aware of the definitions and how they work. So, and you work with primarily investors, people who are buying investment properties, and of course consumers who want to buy a property to homestead to live in.
Yep.
So give us an idea of an example of some of these things we're talking about and how they would benefit some of our listeners now.
Good deal. So my definition of a mortgage wrap, I try to simplify it. It's just seller financing, and you're not paying off the underlying mortgage.
Okay.
And so that second part causes people to go, wait, how do we do that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. But it's simply just seller financing, whether it's a wrap or a sub two, and those are kind of different, but not even too much different in and of themselves. So I call it seller financing without paying off the underlying mortgage. And then if you want to separate it between wrap and sub two, a mortgage wrap is your seller financing without paying off the underlying mortgage, and you have a bigger mortgage wrapping around that existing. Sub two is your seller financing without paying off the mortgage, but you're selling it for the exact amount that's owed. That existing
and that's,
payoff.
What's that called again?
Sub two or assumption. Those are synonyms. Yep.
Okay. So most people I think would be familiar with the word assumption. And I want to kind of give you a little example of what that would look like for some people, at least my experience this week. I had a young man approved up in the Copper Cove area to buy a property. He was a veteran moving from Florida, and he was qualified to buy under his VA eligibility, and right now to be around 6%. Well, he came across a property for sale up in that area, or the realtor did, and the underlying loan was 3% of a current VA loan. And he was able to pick that loan up as an assumable loan, qualifying assumption, because it's a better deal that I could offer him. So I lost that client, but that's called a qualifying assumption. And so he would have to go back to the servicing company and do his paperwork and pick up that loan and pay the difference. And now he qualifies. But you're going to talk about people who maybe that wouldn't work for them. So let's talk about how a client that maybe would come to you for help.
So that's a fantastic example to start off with, because what happened there was that existing mortgage interest rate was more appetizing to him than what was available out there to the public.
Much. Saved him hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. And so what we're dealing with is essentially people are sitting there with their 2.5, 2.75, 3.5% interest rate. But buyers don't want to go out there and buy because they don't want to pay 6-7% interest.
Yes.
So what we offer.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Including me. I'm sitting where I'm sitting.
Right.
And so people will say, all right, well, and sellers are understanding, I have an asset to sell and it's not my house.
Yeah.
It's my interest rate.
Right.
And so
that's a great point right there.
Yeah.
Your mortgage is your asset.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. And so they'll go out there and offer, 4.5, 5.5% interest, which is below what the buyers can get. Mm-hmm. And now your buyer pool opens up considerably.
Right.
So that's the consumer side of the transaction, not the investor side of the world. But the consumer, the sellers are understanding that they have power in that interest rate, just like your fella did.
Yeah. So an example is, I have a condo, and I was telling you earlier before the show, in Lakeway, that we bought in 2021 at 2.75% rate.
I'll buy it.
Yeah. Well, we may or may not sell it. We're leasing it now, but I'm thinking if we wanted to sell it, and I actually owe less than 200. It's worth about, let's say, 500. Okay, so there's about a $300,000 equity position. So let's say I wanted to sell it on that to make it attractive to somebody to buy who maybe didn't, either an investor who wanted to rent it out or somebody who wanted to live there. Tell us how that may work, if that would be a good strategy.
So if it's, I don't know what you're renting it for, but all you need to do, and you can do this easily, obviously, as a mortgage guy, you just need to figure out, all right, if I sell this thing at 5.25% interest, am I going to cash flow more? So let's say you said 500, you get 100,000 down, you have a $400,000 new note at 5.5.
Okay.
Does that equal greater than my rent rate that I can get? And if the answer is yes, then that
maybe
would be
go that route.
Yeah.
And so, but the mechanics of it is the buyer in this case would say, hey, I like that 2.75 deal. It sure beats 6.5 or 7, so they could essentially take over my mortgage. Tell us how that works fundamentally.
So you just got through giving an example about a qualified assumption.
Yes, sir.
What we're talking about is non-qualified assumption.
Okay.
And there was legislature that was passed that says, do we need to get consent or do we need to disclose to the underlying mortgage company? And the legislature said, no, This is not it's a don't ask, don't tell transaction.
Got it.
And so you're not getting permission and you're not going through any kind of qualification program with the mortgage company. You're just creating a new note that would be where you're now the mortgage company. You're the lender.
Okay. Got it.
And so you continue to pay your mortgage.
Okay.
You just receive your payment from your guy that paying
see
his mortgage. So you have that
saying.
second mortgage that's wrapping around the first.
Oh, okay. I knew sort of how it worked, but that makes more sense, even though we're sitting here talking about it. So I would personally, if you will, create a new mortgage for the buyer at negotiated rates between he and I in this case.
Yep.
And I keep the underlying mortgage. I keep paying that just like I do now.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And so then you cash flow, and what you're essentially using, other people's money.
Yeah.
So that 200 that you owe, that you said 2.75.
Yeah. 2.75.
So that gap between 2.75 and 5.5, we'll say, let's make it easier, 5.75, that 3% that you're getting net is free because it wasn't your money to go make 3%.
Oh man.
You're making percentage off of someone else's money.
I need to get that on the market. I better check with my wife first.
I'll take it at 3.25.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Then I can go arbitrage.
Yeah. And the beauty of that, of course, is the beauty of that is it's a seller finance essentially. So you don't have to come to a lender like me and go through all the paperwork of qualifying, of all the tax returns and things like that. So if your credit may be dinged up, but you've got some money in the bank possibly, or maybe you're self-employed and you don't show enough income to go through the traditional programs.
Yep.
Loan programs.
You're on point.
This is the client.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's lots of people out there, you know, not every day, but almost every day I come across somebody who this may be an option for. So this is really good information for me to learn.
Yeah. Your non-qualifying buyers are mortgage wrap buyers.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. And so categorically you have, let's say, two sets of clients. You have investors who want to buy investment property possibly. And that makes it much more attractive, I think, to investors, because in my world, it's much harder to get a traditional, what you call Fannie Mae or conventional loan for lenders, for investors.
Yeah.
And then you have consumers who just want to buy a property and live in. So tell us about your ideal client, or maybe you don't have one, but somebody who needs your services.
Well, you know, you just triggered, you reminded me of one. So I'll give you a real life example. Motivated sellers out of Lakeway. They owed about $750,000 on their mortgage. They had it listed at about $775,000. It was tight. That's not going to be enough money to pay the real estate agents, et cetera. So they were having a tough time finding buyers at $775,000. They could have sold to an end user and said, just take over my mortgage and continue paying that. We're out. So that would be sub to or assumption, non-qualified assumption. But what did happen, since they had, I think it was 3.25% interest rate, an investor came over and said, and it was an open house and everyone's walking through, not much interest. And he walked up to the sellers and said, I'll pay you $850,000. And so bought the house at $850,000. Now the real estate agents are real happy. There's enough for commissions and such. Sellers were out. And so they took over the mortgage, paid the difference between the $750,000 and the $850,000. That was their down payment. And that investor immediately went and put it on the MLS as seller finance at below what interest rates were.
Oh, man.
Found a buyer at $950,000.
Oh my God.
Made his money, got out. So there was either way that house could have been amenable for the sub to or the wrap, which did happen, a mortgage wrap investor.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, you talked about 08 and 09, and we are in a much different world today as far as this strategy, because rates had fallen so much during the COVID years, you know, that the example that wouldn't have existed in 08, 09, that opportunity.
Right.
Okay. Because, you know, even back in the few years ago, we were doing loans as low as 2.25%, 2.5% on a 30-year mortgage, you know, not every one, but as low as that. I thought to myself, this could be bad for the market someday when rates start going up, at least for people like myself, which has been somewhat true. But for others, in your case, it's a world of opportunity, you know. And I was telling my wife this morning, even I wrote a loan for an investor, young man, and who's buying a property in Cedar Park to rent it out. And he's very qualified. But the seller is a short sell. And we haven't heard that term short sale in a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
Been a while.
It's been a while. And I'm thinking, I wonder what their underlying mortgage may be. Maybe it's better he do this strategy. I don't know.
Any short sale is a sub to opportunity, depending on their interest rate. The interest rate's the asset.
That's right.
Not the house.
That's right.
So if they're sitting on a 3.25, then that short sale is a subject to possibility.
So interesting.
We'll go over there later.
Yeah. Yeah. I got the address.
Together,
I
right?
got the address. But and that reminds me, I want to be clear about the term short sale. Short sale means that if you sell a property and your property either is worth less than what you owe, and or after commissions and fees, your net would be negative. You either come to the table with that loss, or you negotiate with the underlying or with the bank or whoever to take the loss.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
That Lakeway house was going to be a short sale.
That's what I'm thinking.
If what occurred didn't occur.
Yeah. So I think sellers need to realize that, because if you bought a property in the last, well, even myself, I'll give you an example. We talked about this. I bought a property, my wife and I, in May of 2022. You know, there was a major remodel. We put a lot of money into it. And we are somewhat upside down as far as what we invested versus what it's worth today.
Yeah.
Now we put money into it, so we would walk away with cash, but if we had to sell it, but if we didn't have that equity position, that would be what I call a short sale.
If you're going to sell that now, yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be fine in a few years, but
Yeah. We're going to hold on to it.
yeah.
You know, it's on a golf course. I've always wanted to live on a golf course, even though I'm terrible at golf.
I think we all are, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So what can we talk about as far as a little bit more about, you know, what you do?
Well,
You like you said, I've seen you teach many times, and you're a great instructor, but I don't want to get out in the weeds too much, but I want to at least talk about some of the fundamentals.
so if anyone's listening and they say, well, this mortgage wrap thing, I think I'll go Google that. I need to figure out what's going on. They're gonna run into something called the due on sale clause.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. What it means is if you sell the lender's asset, that property, that's the collateral, they have the right to call the note due immediately. So it sounds pretty darn important.
Yeah.
And
it does.
It was funny. My daughter works with me and she doesn't understand all these mechanics and things, but she was reading the due on sale clause and she came in just all concerns that, Dad, I don't know if you know this or not, but look.
Yeah. You better read this.
I was like, all right, sweetheart, come to my next presentation.
Right. That's right.
It was pretty cute. But what the reality of the due on sale clause is, I'll use a quote from someone else, an investor. He said, it's like the Loch Ness monster. You hear a lot about it, but you really never see it.
Right.
Mortgage companies don't care. They want their monthly payment.
That's right.
Mortgage companies aren't watching. So Wells Fargo, I think, has 750,000 loans. They're not checking each month to make sure that their collateral wasn't
Jim
sold.
Smith sends a check. Right.
Right. So it's not really an issue, but it's the most often found thing when you're going to start Googling is what's going on. So I don't want to get in the weeds, like you said, but bottom line is the due on sale clause is a very, very, very remote issue. And I use three varies for a purpose there.
Right. And that's a very good point because it is part of the deed of trust, I assume.
Yep.
Yeah. The part of the deed of trust that says that if this loan is transfer of title, then we want our money back.
Yeah.
You know, and even lenders over the years have been somewhat not brainwashed so much, but as Trump would say, it's fake news. You know,
I would say that's accurate. Brainwashed.
Yeah, we're kind of brainwashed. And this is the way
they think it's bad.
They think it's bad.
Now you ask them, why is this bad? They say, I don't know.
No clue.
Yeah.
I couldn't answer it.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't seem to make a big problem.
Well,
what's the problem?
You have two people obligated to pay the mortgage.
Right.
So in actuality, it's a benefit.
Yeah. It seems like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, so, but, you know, in some cases it could raise its ugly head like that monster you're talking about, but
yeah.
not often.
Well, and if it does, we have a fix.
Yeah. You got to fix.
So
and you've closed, I think you said one time, 10,000 of these.
I had to add it up back in, I think 2018. It was around there. We're getting close to probably 15,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So they say if you've ever done anything for 10,000 times, you're an expert.
Well, I think
I want to bring in experts to my show. You know,
we figured the thing out, I think.
Right. Yeah. Figured it out. And along those lines, there was something I was thinking about the due on sale, but that's not important. Because I can't think of it. But so getting back to somebody who may benefit this, again, from my perspective, is people who can't necessarily qualify or don't want to qualify at a 7% interest rate. They may be able to get a loan.
So we're ready to sell our house. The last kiddo's graduating.
Yeah.
And we want to move out, a little bit further. And
from that HOA you're talking about?
Maybe. Maybe. I do need some space.
Yeah.
And we're not going to go get a mortgage right now.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'm looking for is a potential seller finance wrap right now. So the when you say who does this benefit, everyone who doesn't want to pay 7%, whether it's investor or consumer.
Wow, man. And the other point was, when I saw you teach the last time, I actually hosted you at one of my lunch and learns. It was an excellent presentation. You know, most people think about a wrap as some sort of different paperwork where you have different contracts and that sort of thing. Now, there's maybe more to it than just this 1-to-4 contract that you'd use anyway.
Yeah. So what we try to do is make it look as conventional as possible. And what I mean by that is we're using the Texas Real Estate Commission promulgated purchase agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get in there to draft up the loan documents, it's the exact same set of loan documents that Wells Fargo and Bank of America are using. It's a note, warranty deed with vendor's lien, a deed of trust,
Yep.
Disclosures. And you said, you don't have to qualify. In these consumer transactions, the buyers are qualifying. They're going through an RMLO, residential mortgage loan originator.
Okay.
Is that what?
Yeah.
I forget
That's it.
So they're qualifying. You still qualify your end buyers if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still look at credit,
And you should.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have an underwriter. The owner is the underwriter. Is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
It's a seller finance.
Well, the owner wearing a lender's hat.
Wearing a lender's hat.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, well, I would go through the mechanics of getting somebody qualified if I were to sell one of my properties like that.
Yeah.
But I don't send it off to Mr. Cooper or something.
Exactly.
To underwrite the loan. And so let's see, what else can we hit on? Oh, I did want to talk about this. This is important. Let's say I sold that condo on one of these wraps, and I took back a note for $400,000 at 5.25 or 5.5, whatever, which is about a point lower or 1.5 lower than the market. It'd be attractive.
Yep.
And they quit paying. Then what happens?
So, like I said, we're trying to make this as conventional as possible.
Mhm.
The seller has all of the rights that a conventional lender has. So they can go over there and foreclose on that property and recover that asset. And so we're recommending people still get 10, 15, maybe 20% down.
Yes.
So if this bad scenario does occur, if the buyer stops paying and the seller has to take that property back, they're making money because now they get to go resell it again and get that down payment.
Yeah. Now, can you walk us through a little bit of the mechanics of that? Because that would scare some people off possibly.
So I do this from an investment standpoint. So I buy properties subject to, I take over the existing mortgage,
Okay.
pay a little bit of money to the seller, but they're out of the game. They're not owed any more money at all. And then I'll just immediately go seller finance it to an end buyer.
Okay.
So they'll sell it for more than the note.
Okay.
And then I cash flow,
Okay.
$500, $600, $700 a month.
Okay.
So we did that on a property up in Bell County, and
Temple area, Bell.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep. And so we expect to make about $30,000-$40,000 on that project.
Okay. Walk us through it real quick. Purchase price and that sort of thing.
So it was low up there in Bell County.
Sure.
I think it was about $175,000 purchase.
Okay.
And we only put I think $5,000 or so into it total to acquire the property.
Okay.
That's paying the seller and putting a little bit of paint and carpet in there. And then went out there and sold that. I forget what we sold it for. I had about 30,000 equity. So that, what was that? 210, 215.
Yeah.
And they brought some dollars down on it. The first buyer. And I call it the Amityville Horror House because I've only had to take a property back 3 times, but it's the same property.
Oh my gosh.
So we took it back, sold it. So again, we got down payment. Something, catastrophic happens with the family in terms of job loss or one guy wrecked his truck twice. And so took it back, sold it, took it back, sold it again.
Wow.
And sold it conventional that last time because I told my wife, I said,
I'm out.
we're hurting people. We can't do this.
Yeah.
Apparently us with this house is making bad things
Feel
occur.
bad about yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly.
when we sold it the last time, now we were benefiting from an increasing market also, but instead of making about 30 to 40, we made $151,000 on that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So when you take a property back, assuming you've gotten your down payment correct, it's not a bad thing number wise. I don't want it to occur.
Yeah.
I want everyone to succeed.
But assuming it did occur, of course, you're an attorney, you know the mechanics of it. But for somebody like myself, how long would it take to get a property back? Does it take 2 months or it takes 2 years?
So let's say we've had maybe 25 defaulting situations out of all the ones that
all of them.
Yeah, not me. I'm talking about the ones that I've been involved in with the title office. Only 2 of those have had to go to foreclosure. We resolved the other 23 with what's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Okay.
Buyer just deeds it back.
Okay.
And so the 2 that had to go to foreclosure, the process is really kind of easy because Texas is a non-judicial foreclosure state.
Yeah.
So 20-day notice. And then after that, 21-day notice, and then set it on the first Tuesday. So 45 to 60 days to recover it.
Okay, but the deed in lieu most would probably work most efficiently.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So on that one that I was talking about, we just got it back 3 times deed in lieu.
Yeah. Did go through all the courthouse stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're about out of time, man. This is going fast down, Jessica.
Wow, that was fast.
It was fast. I told you it was gonna be fast. But tell everybody how to get a hold of your office, or how they want to find you. They have questions, or they want to do some business with you.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Good deal. So best way to get a hold of me is if you can spell my last name, you can find me.
Spell that.
So it's Ceshker. It's pronounced Seshker, but spelled Ceshker.com. And that'll take you to how to get a hold of us.
Okay, and you're in Austin.
Yep.
Over,
We've got Dallas, Austin, Buda office locations. I'm in Austin.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've been to your office. I was there the other day, matter of fact. Again, guys, if you're looking to buy properties either as an investor or to owner occupied, Alan's really somebody you want to maybe talk to, and at least expose your realtors who may not know about some of these strategies that he's an expert in, to help you make save a lot of money in these transactions. I just think it's important to know these strategies, like assumptions and these things called sub-twos and wraps. A lot of language there, but I think it's if you learn it and you're interested, he's the man to talk to. So again, I appreciate your time, and we may have to do this again.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Thanks again.